Andy, my dude, have you heard of the magical website builder known as Squarespace?
Ugh, not another Squarespace ad. I feel like every podcast is sponsored by them.
Hey, don't knock it till you try it. Yes, okay, it is overhyped, but actually it lives up to the hype. Squarespace is like a website fairy godmother. With a click of a button, your site transforms into a beautiful masterpiece.
A website fairy godmother? That sounds interesting. What makes it so magical?
Well, for starters, those slick templates make anyone look like a professional web designer. Pick one, customize the colors and fonts to match your brand, and voila. Plus, the drag and drop fluid engine is so easy, your grandma could build a site on Squarespace.
Well, she did knit me a lovely scarf last Christmas. Maybe website design is next.
Exactly. And when you're ready to sell your Nana's handmade scarves online, Squarespace has built-in e-commerce. Add a store with one click. Get flexible payment options. Then watch those sales roll in. And when she wants to teach others her steezy scarf skills, Squarespace's new courses feature is just the ticket. Nana can set up her curriculum and enrollments and payments in a snap and become the next e-knitting influencer.
Oh, wow, you really sold me with the grandma angle. Sign me up for that free trial.
Just go to thenextreel.com/Squarespace and transform your site into a beautiful Squarespace masterpiece.
Well, thanks, Pete. Even though it's overhyped, Squarespace actually sounds perfect for Nana's site's needs. Appreciate the warning on the ads, though. I'll brace myself next time I listen to a podcast.
Anytime. Let me know if you need any help getting that site up and running. Andy, can you believe we've almost hit 700 episodes of The Next Reel?
I know, it's crazy. And with all the other episodes in our family of podcasts, we are well over 1,200 episodes of movie conversation. It's really pretty amazing that we've gotten to have these in-depth movie chats every week for over a decade now.
And we couldn't have done it without our loyal community of film fans. Their support over the years has meant so much.
For sure. That reminds me, we should give the merch store a shout out. Buying shirts from thenextreel.com/merch is a great way listeners can continue to support the show. Plus, they get to sport our great designs.
Absolutely. I think sometimes folks forget we have a variety of shirts, mugs, phone cases, and more available. In fact, a great place to start is with a shirt sporting the Next Reel's logo.
We also have that classic Fast Times Spicoli Surf School tee, or the weirdly popular Rusty's European Tour shirt.
The one from National Lampoon's European Vacation. Why is that so popular?
Search me, but we have sold a ridiculous number of those. I guess there are a lot of Rustys taking trips to Europe?
We're always adding new designs based on movies we've covered, like our brand new design for a streetcar named Desire, featuring a streetcar named Desire. So if you want to rep your love of TNR and films, head to thenextreel.com/merch.
Every purchase helps us continue to have these weekly in-depth conversations. So visit thenextreel.com/merch today.
And as always, thanks for listening and being a part of the Next Reel community. We've got lots more great movie chats coming your way.
This is The Next Reel, everybody. I'm Pete Wright, and that over there is Andy Nelson.
Hey, hey, hey.
And we spoil movies. Tonight on the show, we're wrapping up our Hayao Miyazaki series with his 2004 film, Howl's Moving Castle. Before we get into that, you should learn more about us at thenextreel.com. Subscribe to the show in your favorite podcast app or follow us on Twitter and Facebook at The Next Reel.
And if you're a regular listener of the show and you're interested in supporting our ongoing work investigating great film, please consider a regular donation through our Patreon page at patreon.com/thenextreel. We have lots of great conversations over on Slack, and those Patreon members are able to join us and get in on the conversation, so you should too.
You should really join us on Slack. And you could talk to the good and kindly Ben Lott of the Blotspot fame.
Oh, yes.
He writes in with a rebound this week on Spirited Away.
Spirited Away is probably my favorite Miyazaki film. It creates an elaborate world and gets me invested in the plight of the main character. I still struggle, though, because there doesn't seem to be any rules to the way this world works. When someone can be cut in half without any ill effects, I start to wonder what the point is to everything. Your rank 43, my rank 166.
What is the point to getting cut in half?
I ask myself that every day.
Friend of the show, Nick Langdon in Slack, he posted some thoughts on Spirited Away as well. You may know Nick Langdon from his famous role as winner of this week or this year's or this quarter's. What is it even?
This I don't know. We do them
this biannum, the semi-annum.
3 times a year. What do you call it? It's not a quarter. This third
triannum of the winner of the Hunger Games, and we will be talking about his favorite film coming very, very soon.
Ooh, can we say what it is?
I don't know. How do you feel about that? I wanted to leave that up to you, man.
I think we should. It's exciting.
I want to speak for you. Okay, go ahead. You do it.
We're going to be talking about, per Nick, Scott Pilgrim versus the World. Oh, yes.
Oh, it's about time.
I'm very excited to get that one on the chart.
Well, okay, so back to this other Spirited Away thing. So he wrote in, and I thought there were some really good points in here, and I'm going to abbreviate a little bit. The themes of modernism versus tradition and the foreign influence were highlighted in interesting ways, and I'm speaking now as Pete. Parenthetically, this is an auspicious point given the movie we're talking about tonight. He says, one I picked up on where the spirits seem to use old forms of transport, vintage railways and ferries, but not only did Chihiro's father drive a modern car, you could tell it was an import straight away because the steering wheel was on the wrong side, showing that there was no consideration given to Japanese local customs. This was an interloper from another world. Yet against these weightier themes, so much of the animation was just cute and funny, particularly the return of the soot sprites from My Neighbor Totoro and the hilarious double act of the transformed creatures that accompanied Chihiro and No-Face on their journey. Even when the rest of the frame was quiet, there was always some business going on with them. Is the difference between a film like this and Alien Covenant also a factor of all animation being, by default, single camera? Whereas we know Ridley Scott likes to use multiple cameras to shoot fast, do a couple of takes, and then move on. I enjoyed the moments of silence that exist in real life, but so rarely find expression in film, much better than Ballistic X versus Sever. On that, we can all agree.
It's so funny.
Well, I love it. I love that he pulled out some of those points that, we spoke of them in the context of attention to detail, but, that I had not noted that the spirits used old forms of transportation. And that's classy, not just attentive. And it's time. Let's do trailers.
So my trailer, Pete, is the trailer for Wonder, which, the thing about movies like this is I watch the trailer and I'm already freaking crying. I mean, it's so frustrating. This is one of those just, tug at your heartstrings, sappy movies that it does its job way too well for me. And, it looks like a cute movie. It doesn't look like it's anything that's changing the world or anything, but there's a sweetness to it and everything. The real reason I picked this, though, is because Jacob Tremblay, who we loved so much in Room, is actually the lead in this film. He plays the young boy, Augie Pullman, who has had some deformities and has had to have a lot of different surgeries to kind of make it so he can breathe right and he can hear properly and all this sort of stuff. But it's also left him facially deformed. And here he is going to 5th grade, going to school for the first time, much to the hesitation of his parents, played by Julia Roberts and Owen Wilson. And he's, has to kind of deal with the whole world of 5th graders and, judging by the looks of him and everything and finding friends and all that sweet stuff. It looks exactly like what you would expect out of a movie like this, but something about sappy movies like this, they work on me really well, and this one really just hit it out of the park for me. So I definitely want to see this. I don't know if it's not going to be something that I'm going to probably love or anything, but it's still going to be something that will tug at my heartstrings. Stephen Chbosky is directing it, and he did The Perks of Being a Wallflower. And he also just recently wrote Beauty and the Beast. So it's going to be an interesting one to see. What did you think?
I'm really excited about this one for a number of reasons. First of all, I'm with you. I think anything that can get me into that sort of emotional space quickly is a film I want to check out. I think this is it's a timely story. It's based on a book that my kids adore. If you, it's maybe a little bit early for your kids, but it's a terrific, terrific book by R.J. Palacio. It's a terrific story, and so my kids both saw the trailer just this week, and were floored that it was being made into a movie. They're about as eager for this as they are any of the big tentpoles this summer. So I'm hoping that this is one that really gets some legs to it. But of great note, however, the reason I am most excited about it, because I'm a musical nerd, Daveed Diggs plays the teacher in the classroom, and Daveed Diggs, Andy, played Marquis de Lafayette and Thomas Jefferson in Hamilton in the original cast. And I really like this guy. I love that he's doing more and more film work. He's supposedly in pre-production in Snowpiercer, the TV series that just cropped up on his IMDb page. So I don't know what that means, but I'm very excited about that too. What a cool guy. So there you go. I'm excited about it. When's it hit?
Something else that we should both be excited about is Steve Conrad is one of the screenwriters for it, and he wrote The Secret Life of Walter Mitty, which is something that both hits strongly for us, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Indeed. Well, we'll have to wait a little bit of time for this one, Pete. It doesn't open. It's going to be around Thanksgiving. It's going to be November 17th here in the U.S. and Canada, and then slowly around the rest of the world after that: Brazil, Australia, Portugal, Singapore, UK, into December, and then Germany, January 4th, 2018.
I am really excited about my trailer, and I know there are going to be people out there who are going to try to harsh the buzz. I know that they are, for any number of reasons they are.
Are you telling me? Are you warning me?
There are people named Andy Nelson who are going to harsh the buzz. We all know there are many Andy Nelsons in the world, some of them professionals in the industry of film. Some of them may be harshing my buzz on this film tonight, but I'm really excited about this movie because I am one of those guys who really likes the Ocean's movies. I think Steven Soderbergh did a great job with those films in terms of his Vegas caper set. I love the way he uses camera. I love the way they're cut. I love the just everything about him. I really enjoy those movies, and he's back. He's out of retirement again, Steven Soderbergh, and this time he brings us Logan Lucky, which is essentially, you just imagine, just take it in your head, take a minute and think Ocean's 11, but in North Carolina at a NASCAR race, and all of the Las Vegas crooks are replaced by very colorful hoods in the South. And listen to this cast. Catherine Waterston, we just saw her in Alien Covenant. Nice to see her getting back in here. Daniel Craig, Channing Tatum, Seth MacFarlane, Sebastian Stan, Riley Keough, Adam Driver, Katie Holmes, Hilary Swank, David Denman, Dwight Yoakam, Jack Quaid. Yes, that Jack Quaid. It looks like a really fun cast doing something that it just looks like they had a really fun time delivering on screen. I laughed at this trailer from the moment it started. I can't wait to see it. Steven Soderbergh directs, Rebecca Blunt writes. What did you think?
I think that directors, when they say that they're retiring and then they come back, they're just doing it for fun now. It's like, I've retired. Now I can just play. This totally feels like Steven Soderbergh just having a good old time, getting great actors to do really interesting parts. I loved, this is probably my favorite moment in the whole trailer. And it's nonsensical, but I love it anyway because of that. It's when they introduce Daniel Craig as, and introducing Daniel Craig. Which I was like, that is just brilliant. I mean, what a fun little way. I mean, it's totally different Daniel Craig than I've seen before. And it just, I mean, he is the one that I really want to see this for. But really, everybody involved. I mean, all I could think of watching this was this is a weird mashup of Steven Soderbergh and the Coen brothers. That's what it really felt like to me. And I was actually, I swear that I saw something that the Coens had actually written this, but now I guess it's not the case, huh?
I found nothing. Rebecca Blunt, I didn't find anything that said otherwise. And to be fair, I didn't look that hard. So there's a chance that you're still right out there on some horizon. I think it looks really great. I'm with you on Daniel Craig. He is definitely the one I'm most excited to see as Joey Bang.
With that
So
bleached
funny.
blonde hair and that
Oh,
crazy accent with his higher pitched voice.
and Adam Driver has one arm
Yep.
and apparently keeps losing it. So I'm excited to see this. It opens, looks like Canada, Norway, U.S. August 18th this summer. UK the next week, August 25th. Sweden, August 25th. And we've got later months, Singapore, Germany, France, and Netherlands come through August, September, October, December. And that is all that has been posted so far.
Cool.
Don't you know the proverb saying that a real professional does his perfect work no matter where he is? Andy.
From master filmmaker Hayao Miyazaki, the director of the Academy Award-winning Spirited Away.
That is ancient sorcery. And quite powerful, too.
This summer, experience the epic tale of a young woman transformed by a mysterious curse.
That's really me, isn't it?
An enchanted moving castle.
This is a magic house.
And the one wizard powerful enough to set her free.
This charm will guarantee your safe return.
Walt Disney Studios presents a Studio Ghibli production of a Hayao Miyazaki film.
Hold on.
This June, journey to amazing new worlds.
Find me in the future!
Aboard Howl's Moving Castle.
Howl's Moving Castle, Andy, 2004. Hayao Miyazaki. As we teased last week, this is a film that Miyazaki directed, though, and technically did the screenplay, though we know he's not much for screenplaying. It was based on the book. It's another person's story. Diane Wynne Jones wrote the novel, and he has adapted her story of Howl, the Wizard, and the Castle That Moves. How did it hit you?
I enjoy this film. This was, thinking back, this was actually the first Miyazaki film that I actually saw in theaters. All the rest before had been just seen on DVD or Blu-ray. And this was the first time that I kind of was aware of who he was. And I don't know, Buddy and I got tickets. I think we got like free tickets or something. I can't remember. And so we went and saw it, quite excited. And it just kind of mesmerized me. It's such an interesting world. I really enjoyed it. I had a great time with it. I wouldn't say that that it's one of his films that I really love, but I do enjoy what's going on within it, if that makes any sense.
No, it really does. I think the film sort of suffers for me. I'll say at the start, I'm with you. I love what's going on in the film. I love the messages, and I think as an adaptation, it feels much more like a Miyazaki film than I would have expected, knowing that somebody else wrote the story. And so all of that I celebrate. But this is a film compared to the other films that we have watched in the series in which I'm always thinking, or often thinking, about what is going on off screen while I'm watching something else on screen. And that sort of distraction that keeps me kind of wishing that we were looking at the story from another perspective or seeing something around the corner in a way, is something that I find detracts the film for me. Or just it prevents me from developing the sort of emotional connection that I made on Spirited Away, for example.
The thing with this film is that it does create this really interesting world, but I think it asks a lot of questions or poses a lot of elements that it never really fully closes. And I'm not saying it has to close things up in a nice and tidy bow and all that sort of stuff, but it's kind of nice to feel like there's enough here where I can really piece everything together. And I felt like by adapting this book, it was which sounded like, I mean, I haven't read this book, but it sounds like it was a much bigger book, and they actually had to cut a number of storylines and characters and condense a lot of stuff in order to make it work in context of this film. But also, Miyazaki, we talked about last time how he didn't show up at the Oscars. He was protesting because of the war with Iraq. This film, because of the war with Iraq, he actually really sought out to make a film that that was kind of an anti-war film, and he was really kind of there is a war element in the story of Howl's Moving Castle in the novel, but I guess it's kind of in the background. It's something that's happening. And I think the really only thing that is something that is really dealt with is the king tells Howl, go find the king's missing brother Justin because his skills are needed for this war. And that's kind of it. It's just this cursory thing that's happening in the background. It's something that he really brought to the forefront because of the feelings he was having with the Iraq war, and being such a pacifist, he really wanted to kind of make this message film. And in doing so, I think it clouds kind of the story. And as much as I enjoy this world and all of the things going on in it, I don't know if I really have a sense as to what the purpose of all of it is, you know? Like what is Howl doing? Is he just out fighting both sides of the war all the time? And it's, he's trying to stop it. And by doing so, and being that big bird, it's turning him into the bird forever. I don't really get it. And I think I had an easier time understanding some of the logic within the worlds of some of his other films. This one, as much as I love it, I don't fully get some of these elements within there.
Yeah, I'm right with you, and I think Howl is a puzzling character for me. I mean, does he represent Miyazaki's statement on patriotism as the bird as he flies through the war zone, or pacifism as the bird who never seems to really engage? Right? I mean, there's a lot of watching and really relatively little active engagement on behalf of the state. And even when he is drawn to Madame Suleiman as his pledge demands, he went and then was ready to leave. Like, he didn't want to do anything once he got there. He wanted to go back to his thing. And whenever we see him when he's not engaged as the bird, he's sullen and listless. And, I made a note that he was dealing with just sort of generalized anxiety or deep depression. What is this statement here? I mean, is Howl a representation of sort of a quite literal representation of Miyazaki's, deep consternation about the state of the world at the time? It certainly started to feel like Howl was the emotional resonance of Miyazaki wearing it right on his sleeve. So it was a little much, and at the same time, not quite enough. To your point, every time he opened that black door and walked out in the first act, I was thinking, what's going on behind the black door? I would much rather start exploring that world right away with Howl than watch Elder Sophie clean the castle. And I know that that's certainly a matter of taste, but I found it much more interesting thinking about what was going on elsewhere in the world. So,
yeah, and it's a really. It's interesting. I love the way the door works. I love the way that it kind of the wizard portal that kind of puts them in different places. And I think that's such a creative tool that is used here in the film. And the black door has such an interesting presence about it, because you never really know what it is. And it's just one of those things where, and I mean, we finally see what's through the black door. And it's one of those things where is it like the shark in Jaws? Are we better off not having seen it? Are they trying to hide because it wasn't as exciting as it could have been? I'm not sure. I'm not sure if the answer of the black door is something that Miyazaki came up with because he was trying to tie it into the war element, or if the what's behind the black door was in the novel. I don't know, but it's just something that I really enjoyed. And yeah, you're right. I would have liked to see more going on behind the door, but at the same time, I'm like, I kind of liked having that mystery, though.
Well, I feel like it's an example of not making a choice. That had they not shown us what's behind the door, you would have probably stayed more true to the book from what I've read. The war element would not have been as enhanced. And it wouldn't have been quite such a plain experience. Once we know the war is going on and we know it's going to be tragic and we know Howl is now clearly, by the point that we see it, we start to make a connection that Howl is dealing with some sort of a traumatic stress disorder, right? And it ends up being not as, I don't know, mystical and engaging as some of the lessons that we get to learn in other Miyazaki movies. It's maybe it's a touch on the nose. I don't know. I'm having a little bit of trouble parsing this one because I didn't have such a connection to it.
Well, it's one of those things where I feel like it's a tricky place to be for a filmmaker or for any artist when you're really worked up about something and then all of a sudden you're kind of letting those emotions drive you in how you kind of express your art, and it can produce great stuff. But then at the same time, there are times where I think you might not be in the right headspace to make sure that the story element is actually effectively telling a story that engages and is logical within context of its world. I feel a little bit like maybe Miyazaki was a little too engrossed in his commitment to tell this anti-war story and stuff it into this movie, that he was too focused on that, and a lot of these other elements started slipping away. Here's a story element that I think kind of gets completely sidelined. We have we very briefly in the beginning we meet Sophie's mother, who seems like a very kind of socialite sort of woman, and that's kind of it. We have this little moment with her before, I think it's right after she's transformed into Grandma Sophie, and she's hiding from her mother and says, "Oh, I have a cold," and then she runs out, and that's the last time we see. Until later, all of a sudden, her mother is the one who kind of lures her in to get into the trap by Suleiman, and it's just kind of a weird little moment. It's like, how did Mom get involved in this, and why, and where was the story element that helped me put all that together? Because it just kind of comes out of left field when Mom all of a sudden shows up just to be this trap for her.
I totally agree. I felt like that was an undeserved twist. And I didn't. It's not one of those that I didn't see coming and really, appreciated being tricked a little bit. I did like, however, the Madame Suleiman as sadistic war puppeteer, confusing antagonist trick. Like we start the first big antagonist that we meet is the Witch of the West, and she is this.
Do you mean the waste?
The waste.
We're not in Oz, Pete.
That's not my fault. That is Oz. That is Oz conditioning. It is, in fact, the Witch of the Waste, and she is this giant thing. And again, we have, we have visual traits in the character design around the big head. The big head is as a sign of just sort of mastery. Giant face in the carriage, I think, is a really cool image when she's talking to Sophie as she's wandering up to the castle, the king's castle. I mean, there's some really interesting things about her. She is so heavily magicked to hold her poise and glamour that when we ultimately see as the tone of the film changes and the character design changes with it, we get to see who she really is. And I think that is such a fantastic transformation. As the war becomes a much more central point in the narrative of the story, she becomes a much less central character in the film and loses her power as such. And I found that a really interesting transformation. And then I'm forced to ask myself, to what end? What did I get out of her having that transformation? What did I get out of her and apparently her entirely ulterior motive to get Howl's heart at the end of the film? I found that a confusing path. Even though I liked how we got there, I really didn't enjoy the journey.
Yeah, and it's tricky. I didn't mind the journey, but it just was something that really left me scratching my head, just completely not sure exactly what was going on or why. I was like, she seemed like she was past all that, and here she is still grabbing his heart. And yeah, there are elements within it that I think may have worked better in the novel, or may have been better suited if Miyazaki had focused more on the novel. And again, that's assuming that the novel makes as much sense as we're making it out to. I mean, who knows? Maybe it's as confusing as this movie is.
In terms of Miyazaki's direction, one question for you, is this is something that is an adaptation. We haven't looked at an adaptation of Miyazaki's in some time. What did you make of him directing somebody else's work?
Well, I mean, I don't think there's anything much of that. I mean, it was his idea to adapt it, and I don't think it's that much different than him bringing on other writers to help him with ideas. I mean, I think he just kind of latched onto the idea, fascinated by this. I think it was just really the image of this castle that was walking around in the hills that caught his attention, and it just seems very Miyazaki. I mean, that image seems like something that would have kind of jumped out of his head. And so I don't think that it doesn't seem like it's that much of a stretch for him to do it, I think that it makes sense considering the world, the kind of the interesting world that feels real, like it feels like our world, but it feels like one in which wizards and witches are living. I think I don't know. It seems like something that he could have done. So I think it's just one of those happy circumstances where he read a book and goes, "Oh, this is something that I feel like is within the family of my storytelling," and chose to make it.
Yeah, I agree. I really liked it. I'm super curious about the process, and then I wasn't able to find a whole lot, given how we know that Miyazaki really works on storyboard, doesn't really write a script per se. I would love to know more about how he goes about adapting something like this. Like, what does the actual process look like? And I couldn't find anything on that. So,
well, I wonder my hunch in the whole concept of not really writing a script, if that really stems from the old Disney method that we talked about with the Bancroft brothers when we're talking about 101 Dalmatians, and how they didn't really write scripts back then. It was really just all boarded out. And I could see Miyazaki kind of sticking with that element of putting a film together still.
Apparently, this was originally supposed to be directed by Mamoru Hosoda, but he quit in, I say protest, that's not really a fair term. I don't think it was with great angst, but he quit because Studio Ghibli rejected a bunch of his concepts, and he said, it doesn't look like we're going to be able to work together on this. And so that's when Hayao Miyazaki stepped in to direct himself. And it sort of feels like this is what he probably should have done all along.
Yeah, I think they were might have been a little busy producing, what was the other film they were producing? I think it was The Cat Returns. And so that might have been why he chose to have somebody else direct it. But in the end, I think it made sense for him to direct it because it really feels, like I said, feels like something of his.
Let's do first shot, last shot, Andy.
Oh, let's. The first shot is a shot of the fog, and then we see kind of a hill shrouded in the fog. And we hear something coming, and we barely see it's the castle, and it's moving past.
And the last shot is the castle, and you know what? It can fly now because Transformers, and it carries all the happy people away above the clouds and into the sky. I really enjoy this connection between these two. I don't know how terribly, it feels a touch literal. We have the castle emerging from the clouds in the opening sequence, which is a gorgeous shot. I mean, I really love the way the castle just sort of emerges on the hillside, and the last it goes off into the sky to be consumed by the clouds. Again, it is much of a fable, in and out of the story. It's an excellent entry and exit. Does it give you much more?
I don't know. I mean, it's something that in this world is kind of this mythical thing. People, have heard of Howl's Moving Castle, and they're excited if they catch a tiny glimpse of it far, far away. But it's not like anybody has really spent time with it. And Sophie just happens to end up in this situation where it becomes this big element in her life. And to that end, it's like in the beginning, it's this thing that's hidden in mystery and kind of this shroud of the unknown. And then at the end, it's like up out in the open and flying and happy. And it does feel very much like, times have shifted and maybe things are going to be better now.
That's one thing I like about the world building in the film is that, this is a universe in which, the castle moving across the landscape is not an abnormal thing.
Right.
There be wizards here. And that's a thing that we live with. And I like the way it's sort of normalized. Casting by Ned Lott. Ned Lott.
I wonder if he's related to Ben.
The Lott Spot. That should be his casting company. We've got Chieko Baisho as young Sophie in the Japanese version of the film, young Emily Mortimer as young Sophie in the English version of the film.
I really like Emily Mortimer as young Sophie. I think that she's just perfectly cast. She has the sensibilities of that character. And paired with Gene Simmons as Grandma Sophie when she gets older, talk about just fantastic casting for both of these two. I really think that they're both stellar choices here. But I also have to say, you didn't mention that Chieko Baisho also plays Grandma Sophie. And what I think is so interesting is that she plays young Sophie and Grandma Sophie, and she was 63 at the time this movie was released. So, I watched probably a good half of this in the Japanese this time, and I gotta say, it's really impressive that she pulls off playing such a young person before she starts playing Grandma Sophie.
It's amazing. She sounds just terrific, but I have to say I'm partial to Gene Simmons.
I know.
Now, lovely
She's
Gene
great.
Simmons. She has been in a lot of stuff. 95 credits, right? 95 credits. Passed away in 2010, Gene Simmons. But she was Sarah Brown in Guys and Dolls, Andy, the movie version of Guys and Dolls with Brando and Sinatra, right? Vivian Blaine.
Oh yeah.
That is I know. It's who I am, man. I'm a musical nerd, and I grew up with that musical. And so Gene Simmons is always follow the fall downstream. Oh, are you kidding? I'm all about Gene Simmons in Guys and Dolls. I was Rusty Charlie.
Till There Was You, Pete. Till There Was You.
Mm-hmm.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
I always think of her as Varinia in Spartacus. That is my go-to for Gene Simmons. Which
you're right. She was that too.
Yeah, that's where my head goes. Yeah, but no matter what, she's just a fantastic actress, and she is so good as Grandma Sophie. I just really love her in this role.
What do you think of Christian Bale as Howl in the English version and Takuya Kimura in the Japanese?
I prefer Takuya Kimura. Christian Bale, I don't mind him, but there are actors who I love who sometimes they get into animation and I'm like, gosh, I don't know if this is really kind of the right thing for you. And he just didn't seem to fit, really. I kind of struggle with him as Howl. I mean, there are times where he works, but for the most part, I never quite connect with him as Howl.
I got used to him toward the end of the film. The beginning, I really struggled. It just the voice didn't match the character to my ear, and that was tough. I don't know if it was just that his brooding just was too reminiscent of Batman. In my head. I had a tough time with that, but it just didn't line up. And I know what you're saying. Like there are some actors whose voices just don't transcend the celluloid barrier. Like they just don't. They never quite fit the character quite the way you want it to. It never becomes a personality of the drawing. And so that was tricky for me. Apparently, he approached Miyazaki directly after seeing Spirited Away, saying he would play any role in this film, whatever. And there he was, Howl.
I have to say, all I could think about when I was looking at Howl is that he was this crazy blend of David Bowie and Doctor Strange. Like, that's totally what he seems like to me.
Yes.
I would love to have I know it's a little late now, but I would love to have had David Bowie do the voice of Howl. That would have been a really cool choice.
We got Jenna Malone as Letty. Letty, the sister, I guess, right?
Yeah, she's the sister, and her part is very small. It was odd that they went to the lengths to cast somebody like Jenna Malone, who was kind of a name, and especially an American to play a Brit for such a small part. But, I guess it was in her British phase. She was doing Pride and Prejudice about this time, too.
Lauren Bacall in the English version, and Akihiro Miwa as Witch of the Waste.
Not the West, the Waste.
I really enjoy the character, and in isolation, I think the character design is terrific, right up through the shrinkage.
Oh, shrinkage. Yeah, no, Lauren Bacall is just fantastic. I mean, both of them really do incredible jobs as this character. And I have to say, just as something kind of a side note with the character design, just this interesting story element that we have dealing with age. We have two of our main characters are these older women, and we have this race up the stairs of these two older women as they're trying to beat each other up to the top of the stairs. It was a really funny scene, and I really just loved what they did there, and I loved how it was kind of a lead up to Suleiman capturing, or I guess not really capturing, but pinning the Witch of the Waste down long enough where she could put her own spell on her to kind of pull away all of the stuff that was hiding her, how she actually was. So it was really interesting. I love that scene.
Yeah, I really did too. I think, and again, to Miyazaki's strong female interpretation, right? I think I think all of these characters taken together make for a really wonderful tableau. And the fact that Howl is really relatively such a whelp for most of the film. Like he's like clearly powerful and he can turn into a bird, but he really is a hot mess. And all of the women are either taking advantage of him, manipulating him, tricking him, or trying to heal him in some way, shape, or form throughout pretty much the entire film.
Yeah, and so is Billy Crystal, his character Calcifer the Fire Demon in the English version, and then Tatsuya Gashuin in the Japanese version. Also an interesting character connected to Howl that I found really interesting. And actually, I kind of enjoyed Billy Crystal in this role. I think they both do a great job, but it's such a, I don't know, I liked the nature of this particular character that was kind of connected intrinsically to Howl because of his heart. And it was something that really I found one of the stronger characters in the film, just because it's just such an interesting creation.
Now look at the comparison between Christian Bale and Billy Crystal as voice actors, right?
Oh yeah.
Billy Crystal is an actor that and comedian that made that transition to voice acting for animation seamlessly. Like I've never had a question about his voice for an animated character, and his voice is behind an iconic animated character. And here, I totally buy him as the Fire Demon versus Christian Bale, and who I never quite rally behind. Isn't that an interesting, like right on screen, right here? Same with Lauren Bacall. Lauren Bacall, who is not known for animation per se, but I found her performance as Witch of the Waste absolutely believable.
Absolutely.
Josh Hutcherson and Ryunosuke Kamiki as Markle.
Yeah, this was kind of just an interesting character. Again, this was something that I wish that there was more to this particular character, and it made me wonder what was going on with this character in the book. But it's like, why was this young character living in the castle? What was his relationship with Howl? There were a lot of questions that never were really answered in context of that. And I felt like that was something that we might have had some answer to at some point. It just never happened because of the way that this adaptation was done.
Yeah, apparently in the book, the character was named Michael. It was older, an older teen or an adolescent, and also had a crush on Sophie at some point. So makes sense of that. I thought Josh Hutcherson was fine. He was really young. What a kid. Which I thought was so funny.
Yeah, this was long before his Hunger Games days.
But he was fun to see in this context. I enjoyed seeing him on screen. I thought it was an interesting thing to make this little kid a major character and a major sort of facilitator of, and I should say handler of Howl. Very much a sort of an id-ego kind of relationship. And I thought it was fascinating.
Yeah, it was. And I loved his little disguise as the old man, as he would like pull it over his head and he had this big beard and everything. That was really cool. I just wish that there was a better sense of the context about how he came to be there.
Blythe Danner and Haruko Kato as Madame Suleiman of questionable intent.
Yeah, I mean, she's a really interesting character, and I like that. I guess Miyazaki took several characters and brought them together to make this particular character for his film. I like her in the film. I don't get a whole lot from her. I think that she's more an antagonist by presence rather than somebody who I really feel serious threats by. Other than the one moment where Sophie is talking with her and Howl pops in.
Isn't it interesting they put her in a wheelchair? I think there's an interesting symbolism there, like that she is wielding her power militarily, magically, through violence, power that ultimately is, making up for some sort of physical impotence. And I think that is an interesting statement on Miyazaki's part. Given how he felt about the U.S., relationship to Iraq and pursuing the Iraq War at the time, she is the manifestation of that. His feeling about the war.
Right. Yeah. She's a very interesting character, and it's again one I personally would have liked to see a little more development with her, but I still think it's pretty interesting.
This is another one that John Lasseter was behind bringing over the English translation, but what else do we need to learn?
Well, I think by this time, it's just important to realize that Studio Ghibli had really taken a hold of the world of computer animation and what you could do. And it wasn't so much about animating it digitally, although there were elements that were done with CG here, but a lot of it was just producing it digitally, where they actually now they draw the backgrounds and everything, but then they digitize it, and same thing with the characters, and then everything is assembled in the computer, whereas before it wasn't done that way. So they're getting more and more used to that and doing more of the digitally altered images and everything. Even though I guess what they do, because they still love the hand-drawn feel so much, that even when they would do digitally altered images, then they would still go in afterward and manually retouch them. So, they really are sticking with the hand-drawn thing. It's kind of what they're known for, I think. They're probably one of the few studios that really still cranks hand-drawn animated films out.
Cinematography, puzzlingly, again, handled by Atsushi Okui.
Ah, yes. What do you do, Atsushi? Give us a call. Tell us.
And moving on to production design, Yoji Takashige and Noboru Yoshida are behind the art direction of the film. I thought there was an interesting bit on the castle design. Suzuki designed the castle, and the model of the castle was originally designed to just fill an empty space in the Ghibli Museum. And when Miyazaki asked, what do you think we should do for the castle? This is what was presented, and it became Howl's Moving Castle with chicken legs. And I thought that was a funny little bit of trivia.
So funny. I noticed on that park map that you found, Miyazaki land, that Howl's Moving Castle was the castle in the middle of the park, much like Sleeping Beauty's castle or something like that. Yes. It was Howl's Moving Castle in the middle. I still want that place to be real.
So bad. Locations. Once again, you had made the comment that this film, I think, has a much more European feel, and it really does. Although I think we can't say that Miyazaki doesn't have a love for European locations. He's certainly influenced by European sensibilities and design and world building. But Sophie's City, in fact, was based on Colmar, France, and Riquever, France, on the border of Germany. And so I'll put a couple of links in the show notes. You certainly don't need that to get here, but I put the Google Maps 3D and Street View map links in the notes, and I find it really fun because when I click on them, I'm in the movie. It's once again, it's like the city he based the Temple City on in Spirited Away. If you go to that location, you're in the film, and I think that's he's has quite a grasp of translating the real space into animation.
Very cool. How did you feel about the editing on this one? Takeshi Isayama editing again. The pacing, I didn't have any problems with the pacing. It still is coming in about 2 hours. For animated films, that's pretty long. But, something about the flow of these stories, they just move at a nice pace, and I never feel like they're running too long.
No, I didn't either. I didn't have any sense of boredom. The issues that I had were much more sort of character motivation story. But I had a great time just watching the film. It's beautiful enough as just a work of art that I trucked right along with it to the very end.
Yep, absolutely.
Your man, Joe Hisaishi, again, with the score, which is, again, fantastic.
Yeah, when he's working with Miyazaki, I think they really come up with some beautiful, beautiful music. And the stuff he does for Howl, I mean, it's not as, for me, it's not as strong as Spirited Away or Mononoke, but there's some really strong themes in here, and it's very easy to hum after you're done watching the movie, and it just kind of sticks with you, and it just kind of lives with you for a little bit. I think that Joe really has a strong connection with the worlds that Miyazaki creates and has found a really nice way to tap into them. So I think this is some strong stuff here.
Totally. And again, some of the most exceptional use of piano in a major theatrical score. The themes are just gorgeous. How did it do during award season?
This one was pretty popular. It got 15 wins and 20 other nominations. It did get an Oscar nomination. It was actually released in the U.S. in 2005, but it ended up getting nominated up against Wallace and Gromit: The Curse of the Were-Rabbit, which ended up taking the award that year. So it didn't win an Oscar, but at the Tokyo Anime Awards, it did win Animation of the Year, Best Director, Best Music, and Best Voice Actor for Chieko Baisho.
Wallace and Gromit, really?
Are you knocking on Wallace and Gromit?
Okay, as much trouble as I had with this film, I have a hard time imagining ranking Wallace and Gromit: The Curse of the Were-Rabbit as higher than Howl's Moving Castle. Really?
To be fair, I've actually never seen that movie. I've seen plenty of Wallace and Gromit, but I haven't seen that movie. I know.
That's a lot of attitude, man.
I know I do. But it's Wallace and Gromit. I love Wallace and Gromit. I think they're great. So I'll have to see that movie before I can fairly judge it.
I don't know about that. How'd it do in the numbers?
Miyazaki's adaptation of Howl's Moving Castle cost 2.4 billion yen, which was $24 million, or about 30.5 million in today's dollars. After premiering at the Venice Film Festival, the movie opened in Japan on November 20th, 2004, and grossed 19.7 billion yen, which was $190 million. Another huge success for Miyazaki and Ghibli, and putting it in third place for most financially successful films in Japan, behind Spirited Away and Titanic. So it was very popular over there. Domestically, Disney gave the film a limited release under their Buena Vista umbrella on June 10th, 2005, opposite The Adventures of Shark Boy and Lava Girl 3D, High Tension, The Honeymooners, and Mr. and Mrs. Smith. It went on to make $4.7 million here and another $45 million around the world, giving it a total gross of $296 million in today's dollars. That leaves it with an adjusted profit per finished minute of about $2.3 million. All in all, I think it's fair to say that Miyazaki has locked in a successful fan base with his films.
That is fantastic.
Yeah.
For animated, like hand-drawn, largely hand-drawn animated films, that is just fantastic. Film after film after film is just incredible. I think it's time for us, Andy, to rank it.
Let's do it.
Head over to flickchart.com/thenextreel or just swipe over to the show notes in your podcast app of choice and tap on the link for Flickchart. You'll see it right there. You can tap on it. It'll take you over to Howl's Moving Castle, and then you can add it to your list and see how it stacks up next to ours. What's first?
First up, we're back to the Oh Brother block. Howl's Moving Castle or Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? I'm Oh Brother on this one.
I'm also a brother on this one.
Howl's Moving Castle or Christmas in July?
Howl's Moving Castle.
I would say Christmas in July.
Would you say it real hard?
It's not the coffee, it's the bunk.
I mean, I do like it. I do like it a lot.
I'm not set in stone on this one. I'll give you Howl.
Okay, I think we should.
I hear you.
Miyazaki thanks you.
Howl's Moving Castle or no?
Howl's Moving Castle.
Yeah, I'll say Howl. Howl's Moving Castle or Whatever Happened to Baby Jane? I'm going with Baby Jane on this one.
Baby Jane.
Howl's Moving Castle or Transamerica?
I think Howl's Moving Castle for me.
I would say, I feel like I'd say Transamerica mostly because of Felicity Huffman's performance. But I'm okay going with Howl on this one.
All right.
Howl's Moving Castle or Driving Miss Daisy?
Driving Miss Daisy.
Driving Miss Daisy, please. Howl's Moving Castle or 500 Days of Summer?
500 Days of Summer, please.
500 Days of Summer, indeed. Howl's Moving Castle or Syriana? Syriana for me.
Syriana, please.
Howl's Moving Castle or some Sean Connery action in Outland?
Outland, please.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Outland.
Yes, you will.
Yes, I will. Well, there it sits. Howl's Moving Castle is 181. 181 out of 305. Not too bad for that one, I'd say.
Yeah, it's not too bad. I don't know. I mean, I'm still at a place where if it doesn't crack 100, I feel bad for the film. But I gotta let that go.
You do have to let that go. Yes, you do. And here's the order, Pete, of all 6 films that we've talked about so far. First up is Spirited Away. Next is My Neighbor Totoro. Then The Wind Rises, Howl's Moving Castle, Princess Mononoke, and last we have Lupin III, The Castle of Cagliostro.
That feels about right.
Princess Mononoke needs to be much, much higher.
Yeah, it's probably okay though.
Much, much higher.
Yeah, it's probably okay right where it is.
It's second to last. Oh.
Yeah, it's probably they're all great films, Andy. It's probably just fine.
Ugh.
You don't want to rock the boat now that the ship has sailed. You don't want to do that. It's okay.
That's right.
What'd this do for your Letterboxd review over at letterboxd.com? Give me a star, and did you like it?
It's 3.5 stars, but I do like it. This is one I feel like the story could be a little stronger, but it is very enjoyable still.
This is another one where over the course of our conversation, I've been going back and forth between 3, 3.5, 4, 3.5, 3. I'm landing at 3.5, but I think it could fall if I don't back away from the computer.
If you don't stop quick.
But I did like it. I did give it a like because I just enjoy his style. I enjoy what it looks like, and the castle as a character itself is just fantastic.
Absolutely, I agree.
We're finished with this year's Miyazaki Fest. And so we've wrapped up our series for 2017. I think it's safe to say we have a few more films to talk about.
Oh, absolutely. He's got a lot of great stuff. So it'd be fun to come back and revisit this another day.
I think it would. But where do we go from here leading into the summer?
Well, we're going to be kicking off a Melissa Matheson series, a screenwriter Melissa Matheson. We're going to be looking at 3 films that she wrote. We're going to start with The Black Stallion. Then we're going to talk about E.T. the Extraterrestrial. And we're going to be ending with Kundun, which should be an interesting trilogy of films to discuss.
Totally. We should say, once again, if you have not found Kundun, if you're following along with us, you may want to jump to your library, your local library, because it's tough to find. It's not streaming. It's not available for purchase online. I think you can get it through Netflix if you're still on the DVD plan.
Nope.
You can't.
No.
There's got to be something about that. Who has put the kibosh on this movie?
I don't know. It's a weird one. I don't know what's going on with it.
It's crazy. I did find. I think we both found it through our local libraries, and so if you're following along, get it into your. You better check it out early. Or get it on request it early so you can watch along with us.
And, what people can also do, Pete, is they should also head over to letterboxd.com/thenextreel. They can check out our watch list, and they can see all the films that we're going to be talking about. Actually, we've got it fleshed out all the way through the end of the year, so they can keep staying ahead of knowing these sorts of things about what films we're going to be talking about and make sure that they can find them in time.
That's a good point. That's a very good point, Andy. Go there, letterboxd.com/thenextreel, and check that out. And while you're doing that, and all the people are going to Letterboxd, I gotta go to bed.
All right. Well, I'm going to go through the black door just to see, just a peek, just a quick little peek.
Amazon giveth, Andy.
As Amazon always doeth.
Really rich critique of the film in Amazon comments tonight. Would you like to go first?
Yeah, actually, mine is somebody who's a fan of the book. Marsha Pop wrote, "This is not the same story. A caveat for anyone who has read Diane Wynne Jones's book, from which this movie was supposedly adapted. This is not the same story. The only thing that remains of the original tale of Howl's Moving Castle are the names of the characters. Everything else has changed, including the characters themselves, the plot, and the entire storyline." So there you go. Some people are not going to be a fan of the movie if they really love the book.
That is true. Although, because of Diana's own comments that the book is a different thing, the book is a different animal, that she loved it, it's great, I side with Diane Wynne Jones.
Hear, hear.
Mine is from Cro-Mag. It's possible that Cro-Mag has been featured on the show before. I feel like we have seen like Cro-Mag. And this particular review, I think, is really incisive. Cuts right to the heart of the issues we have with this film. Cro-Mag says, "I bought this for a friend who was depressed and was informed it was her favorite movie, period. So I guess it fit the bill." So it is actually... It's kind of recursively almost also a review of his friend's depression, which I think is important given the context of Howl's depression. Therefore, Cro-Mag is much more intuitive than we ever thought.
So in that sense, is Cro-Mag Grandma Sophie?
Yes, Cro-Mag is a recursive Grandma Sophie. Do you know what? Wow. I want to do a series next year where this is what we're going to do. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
This is going to be so good, Andy. I am more excited about this series than just about any other series. We are going to go through and we are only going to review 3 movies that Cro-Mag has also reviewed.
Oh, wow.
Right?
Things that we stoop to.
That would include movies like Into the Wild. Okay.
Uh-huh.
Like there's something.
I like that one.
That right? And so did Cro-Mag. Cro-Mag has reviewed a lot of stuff. I think Cro-Mag is one of those like Uber reviewers. Here's one. The Reanimator, Andy.
Oh.
And Beyond the Reanimator and Bride of the Reanimator. Are you kidding? We have hit pay dirt.
Oh, so funny. The Reanimator series care of Cro-Mag.
Cro-Mag's reviews. And I'm not kidding. He gave Reanimator 5 stars, Beyond Reanimator 3 stars, in what has to be the only upset in the triple threat of Reanimator series. The Bride of Reanimator is a 4-star.
Wow.
After the 3-star Beyond Reanimator.
Jeez.
Thanks, Amazon.
It is hard to believe that we have been having in-depth weekly conversations about movies since 2011.
Oh, I know, you're telling me. Producing this show week after week requires a ton of work behind the scenes. If you'd like to help support our efforts, one easy way is by using our originals page when shopping for books and movies that we've covered.
Just visit thenextreel.com/originals. Your purchases made through our links give us a small commission at no extra cost to you and allow us to keep having these great conversations.
In Season 6, our Disease Films series had adaptations like The Omega Man, based on I Am Legend, The Andromeda Strain, Children of Men, and Blindness.
I Am Legend is so much better than The Omega Man.
What about the Will Smith version?
Don't get me started.
For our This Is Real Life Jack series, we talked Black Hawk Down and Seabiscuit, some great true stories based on fantastic books.
And we had more listeners' choices like The Fly, The Emigrants, and Scott Pilgrim vs. the World.
You just did a series on The Fly on the Sitting in the Dark podcast. Did you read the original material?
Wasn't watching every Fly movie enough?
Our Big Betty Davis series featured adaptations like The Little Foxes, Now Voyager, All About Eve, and Whatever Happened to Baby Jane.
Are you calling Betty Davis big?
Only in personality and force.
She is a force to be reckoned with.
We talked about the entire The Godfather trilogy, of course. Iconic page to screen, even if it is just the one Mario Puzo book. I wonder if Coppola will ever make The Sicilian.
We also had some Zhang Yimou adaptations with Judo and Raise the Red Lantern. Absolutely gorgeous movies.
And don't forget the Hughes Brothers series with From Hell, based on the graphic novel. Brilliant material.
Kelly Reichardt gave us Wendy and Lucy and Certain Women, adapted from short stories.
Plus more Hayao Miyazaki as we tackled Howl's Moving Castle.
Find all these books and more at thenextreel.com/originals. Every purchase supports the show.
Get the full list of adapted films that we've covered at thenextreel.com/originals and start your next read today.